Greenland. How much do you know about its strategic value in the world? Let me catch you up on it in case you didn't know. I've got a globe of the Earth here. Of course, it's my office. I got everything. There's Earth. Earth without clouds. During the Cold War, the Soviet Union was our sworn enemy. We, the United States of America, we were spooked into worrying over who might execute a first strike, a first nuclear strike. With nuclear power, one bomb can take out an entire city, killing millions. So, how might that happen? In the Mercar map, you're not thinking North Pole because it's not part of what you're looking at. You just see all the countries lined up from left to right. And you say, well, if Russia were going to bomb the United States, they'd launch a missile going sideways across to hit the United States. Well, that's how they would do it. No, this is all happening on a sphere. And when you turn the Mercer map into a sphere and you get this, you find out that the shortest distance between Russia and the United States is not along a line of latitude. It is over the pole. That is the shortest distance between 2 points on a sphere. So here's all of Russia, Soviet Union in the day. If they want to attack the United States, North America et al., Alaska's Canada, our closest ally, it would come right across the pole. And there it is. How do we defend against that? Well, the United States made an agreement with Denmark to put a military base, an Air Force base in Greenland with the special task of monitoring anything that might come across the pole to attack, either Europe or North America. That was the whole point of that station. In fact, there's an entire episode of Star Talk where I flew to Thule Air Force Base, spent a day there talking to the military personnel. How do their radar systems work as they comb the horizon looking for anything that could rise above? And what kind of defense mechanisms were in place to defend this part of the hemisphere of the Earth from any incursion of weaponry from missiles, specifically from the other side of the Earth? And they were doing this well after the Cold War ended just to be safe. Because why else do you have a military in time of peace if not to keep you safe? You don't want to be in a situation, why do you use dandruff shampoo if you don't have dandruff? Sometimes the military keeps you safe even when you're not at war. This is a perfect example of cooperation between two countries, the United States and Denmark, with regard to what role their territory, Greenland, can serve in the security not only of North America and Europe, but NATO in general. Oh, by the way, the Thule Air Force Base, now that we have a Space Force, has been renamed in honor of the Inuit tribes that occupied that region, displaced by the Thule Air Force Base. And that Inuit tribe is called the B-2. So it's the B-2 Space Base. So let me remind you that the North Pole, there is no land there. So Santa Claus lives on an ice sheet. Okay, this is the North Atlantic Ocean. Much of the year it's frozen over. All right, this exposes to Siberia, to Alaska, to northern Canada. You slip through some channels here, you get to the Nordic countries of Europe, and there's a whole big section here of Greenland. Greenland. Who named that? Greenland is mostly glacier. So a Mercer projection, which so many of us grew up with maps on our classroom walls, Greenland was huge, huge. Greenland is so close to the poles that all the converging lines of longitude are spread out, because on a Mercer map, the North Pole doesn't exist. The North Pole is the entire north edge of that map. How does that work? So here's Greenland on the map looking about maybe 1p4 the size of the United States. But in the Mercer projection, Greenland looks so large it's bigger than Africa on that projection. Greenland is mostly ice in spite of its name. If the glaciers of Antarctica and Greenland melt, it flows back into the ocean, raising the sea level, burying many countries in the South Pacific, burying Florida, whose average elevation is the highest elevation of any of the 50 states. And the water level will rise to reach the Statue of Liberty's left elbow, flooding all the coastal cities of the world. So, as the temperature of Earth continues to rise, there'll be longer and longer intervals of time where the Arctic ice sheet is not completely frozen over, which opens up shipping lanes that can interconnect all of these ports, all of these places, all of these countries that have visibility into the North Pole. And so that, of course, includes Canada, North America via Alaska. Got Greenland, you've got the Nordic countries here. Iceland is down there as well. And of course, you've got Russia, primarily Siberia. And to the extent that that opens up commerce, that's a consequence of the melting Earth, just saying. Back to Greenland. Other interesting things have happened. 1968, there was a B-52 bomber that crashed in Greenland carrying nuclear warheads and other bombs as well. There was a fire in the cabin and they couldn't put it out. All but one of them were able to eject to safety. One of them died. The plane crashed. There was an explosion scattering some radioactive materials into the area. One needs to sort of watch for that. Especially if Greenland begins to melt, you'll have radioactive material melting and flowing into the waterways that surround it. Another interesting project, late 50s, 1960, the United States dug a series of tunnels into the glaciers where we conducted experiments. We had all manner of sort of military secrets supported there in the service of our defense against our sworn enemy, the Soviet Union. It was called Camp Century. It was abandoned 10 years later, but the tunnels are still there. In fact, ice-penetrating radar can spot them, as has occurred in recent years. Another interesting fact about Greenland, if you have satellites orbiting a planet, The low Earth orbiting satellites orbit once every 90 minutes. If they orbit around the equator, it'll see everything around the equator. But if you want to launch a spy satellite, the equator is not a good place to put it because most of Earth will not be visible to you, only the stuff that's directly below the equator. So spy satellites in general tend to be launched pole to pole. If you launch a satellite pole to pole, watch what happens. There's the satellite orbiting in space and Earth spins inside of that orbit. So that every time the satellite makes another trip around, a different swath of Earth's surface is exposed to it. So given enough of these orbits, you can map 100% of a planet's surface. We've done this for the moon. We've done it for Mars, Mercury. Anytime you want to do planet reconnaissance, that's the kind of orbit you want. If you are near the pole, all the satellites are going to come over your airspace at all times. So they have a spy satellite monitoring there as well. There you have it. And people are arguing over Greenland right now. You know, this is the geopolitics of it all. I'm just simply stating that Greenland had very real and meaningful strategic value to the safety and security of Europe, North America, NATO in general, North Atlantic Treaty Organization relative to the real or perceived threat of the Soviet Union during the Cold War. So those are the developments of Greenland on Earth. Until next time, this has been a Star Talk. What's up with that? And in this case, what's up with Greenland in the top of the world? Till next time, keep looking up. Major geopolitical shifts don't usually arrive with a single headline. They take shape gradually through strategic planning, quiet signals, and regions most people rarely think about. Right now, that region is the Arctic. As NATO acknowledges planning for a new Arctic mission, Greenland is back in focus, not just for its location, but for what's beneath the ice. Take this article, for example. Rare earth elements, critical minerals, and uranium have turned the island of Greenland into a strategic prize. What appears to be a regional development is really part of a much larger global realignment still unfolding, depending on who's telling the story and who isn't. When you compare the coverage, it becomes clear how easily scientific achievement can turn into speculation or get ignored altogether depending on ideology. So the real question becomes, how do you know what you're missing? That's why we've been fans of ground news for a long time. It was created by a former NASA engineer who wanted a clearer way to navigate complicated stories. Ground news gathers reporting from tens of thousands of outlets worldwide. From academic journals to global newsrooms, so you can see the full landscape of a story, not just one slice of it. Ground news doesn't tell you what to think. It shows you how the news is being framed. We've partnered with Ground News for years because right now, that context is essential. When science gets tangled up in politics and misinformation, staying informed means seeing the whole picture early. For about $5 a month, you can get the same unlimited Vantage plan we use. Just head to Ground News StarDoc or scan the QR code and start seeing how the full story comes together. Ladies and gentlemen, today I want to talk about a place that most people glance over on a map, but that has played and continues to play a pivotal role in global security, science, and even that place is Greenland, the world's largest island, mostly ice, mostly remote, yet incredibly significant. To understand Greenland's strategic importance, we have to go back to the Cold War. During that period, the world was essentially split into two blocks: the Western powers, led by the United States and its NATO allies, and the Eastern Bloc, led by the Soviet Union. Nuclear weapons had changed the nature of warfare forever. One missile could obliterate an entire city, killing millions of people in an instant. The question then became, how do you defend against such a threat? If you look at the world on a standard Mercator projection map, you might assume that Russia would attack the United States by sending missiles straight across along the latitudes. But Earth is not flat, it's a sphere. The shortest distance between Russia and the US, specifically Alaska, is not along a horizontal line. It is over the North Pole. That's why Greenland became a crucial site for US military strategy. Its location meant it could serve as an early warning hub, monitoring potential missile launches coming across the Arctic. The United States negotiated with Denmark to place an air base in Greenland, Thule Air Base. This base was equipped with radar systems capable of scanning the skies for any missile that might be heading toward North America or Europe. Even after the Cold War ended, the base continued its mission. Why? Because sometimes peace does not mean there is no danger, it means you're prepared for it. Military installations like Thule act as insurance, preventing catastrophic surprises. Greenland's strategic value is not just historical, it's also geographical. Many people are surprised to learn that Greenland is mostly ice, despite its name suggesting otherwise. On a Mercator map, Greenland looks enormous, sometimes bigger than Africa, but in reality, it's about 4 times smaller than that. The island's ice sheet is crucial to regulating global sea levels. If the glaciers in Greenland and Antarctica melt, sea levels could rise dramatically, flooding coastal cities worldwide. That includes major urban centers and even parts of the United States like Florida. But there's more. Greenland's location offers new opportunities in the modern era. As Arctic ice melts due to climate change, shipping lanes open up across the northernmost part of the globe. Suddenly, regions previously cut off become viable routes for commerce. These new pathways connect North America, Europe, and Asia in ways that were not previously possible. Greenland sits right in the middle of these emerging routes, making it a geopolitical hotspot in ways that go far beyond Cold War considerations. And Greenland holds secrets beneath its ice. In the 1960s, the U.S. conducted a top-secret project called Camp Century, digging tunnels into the glaciers for scientific and military experiments. These tunnels were abandoned, but they remain intact under the ice. Similarly, in 1968, a B-52 bomber carrying nuclear warheads crashed in Greenland, scattering radioactive material. The island's melting ice raises concerns about these remnants surfacing and affecting surrounding waterways. Greenland is also crucial for space and surveillance operations. Low Earth orbit satellites are best launched in polar orbits to observe the entire planet. Satellites passing over the poles, including Greenland, can map every inch of the Earth, making the island a strategic vantage point for monitoring both natural phenomena and human activity. Now, Greenland is not just a military or scientific asset, it's also a treasure trove of natural resources. Rare earth elements, critical minerals, and uranium have turned Greenland into a highly sought-after prize. These resources are essential for modern technology, renewable energy, and even defense systems. The scramble for access to these resources is part of a broader global realignment. Countries are thinking not just about today, but about decades into the future. This combination of history, geography, science, and economics makes Greenland an extraordinary case study in strategic value. During the Cold War, it was about defending against nuclear threats. Today, it's about climate change, resource security, and global trade routes. And tomorrow, we can only speculate, but one thing is clear: Greenland will continue to be important to anyone interested in the security and prosperity of the Northern Hemisphere. But beyond military bases, melting ice, and minerals, Greenland also teaches us about cooperation. The U.S. and Denmark have worked together for decades, balancing national sovereignty, indigenous rights, and global security concerns. Thule Air Base was recently renamed in honor of the Inuit tribes displaced by its construction, showing that even strategic decisions must consider human and cultural dimensions. In conclusion, Greenland is not just an icy expanse at the top of the world. It is a living reminder of how geography shapes human affairs, how science informs security, and how global dynamics evolve over time. From the Cold War to climate change, from nuclear threats to rare earth minerals, Greenland has been and will continue to be a place where history, politics, and science intersect. So, the next time you look at a map and see that massive white island, remember Greenland is not just ice. It is a key to understanding the past, present, and future of our world. Its strategic value touches every continent, every sea, and every decision about how we manage security, commerce, and the environment in an increasingly complex global system. Ladies and gentlemen, keep your eyes on the north. Greenland may seem distant, but its influence reaches across the planet. Whether through military history, satellite reconnaissance, shipping lanes, or natural resources, Greenland reminds us that sometimes the most important regions are the ones we rarely think about.